I always knew this summer would be different, but I didn't expect it to come with so many stolen glances and unspoken words. The drive up to my uncle's cabin was quiet except for the hum of tires on gravel and the occasional shuffle of my best friend Tyler adjusting in the passenger seat. We'd done this trip almost every summer since we were kids, fishing, hiking, pretending we weren't secretly checking if we still fit in with each other. But this year, we were 19. College had split us in different directions, and now, with a week of forced proximity ahead of us, something felt unsettled. Tyler had grown, not just taller, though he had definitely filled out more than I expected, but quieter, more thoughtful. The same quick grin still tugged at the corner of his mouth whenever I said something dumb, and his laugh still caught me off guard with how easy it made me feel. But there was a new weight to his silences, a softness in his voice when he said my name that made me feel like I was standing too close to a fire. The cabin sat tucked against the edge of the woods, surrounded by tall pines and wrapped in the golden light of late afternoon. It was the kind of place that felt untouched by time. Inside, the wooden floors creaked with memories, some I wanted to hold on to forever, others I wasn't ready to admit were changing. "You sure your uncle's okay with us being up here alone for a few days?" Tyler asked as he hauled our duffels. "In. He trusts me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Besides, he's only gone till Friday. It's just 3 days." 3 days. That's all it took for everything I thought I knew about Tyler and about myself to shift. As we unpacked, I caught myself watching him too long, like the way his shirt clung to his back when he stretched, or how his hand brushed mine when we both reached for the same mug. They were tiny moments, barely noticeable. But to me, they lit up like signals. I told myself not to overthink it. But my heart was already writing stories my mouth wasn't brave enough to tell, and somewhere, deep down, I wondered if maybe, just maybe, Tyler was doing the same. Tyler and I met in the 2nd grade when he punched a kid for calling my lisp stupid. He didn't even know my name then, just threw himself between me and the teasing with all the reckless loyalty of someone who hadn't yet learned the world doesn't always reward kindness. I've been trying to catch up to that moment ever since. Growing up, we were inseparable. Weekends meant bike rides through muddy trails, gaming marathons, and sleepovers where we stayed up whispering under the covers until our throats were sore from laughter. He always had this way of making me feel like I mattered, like I wasn't just the quiet, awkward kid who preferred books to baseball. He looked at me like I was something worth knowing. That never really changed. In the cabin's dim kitchen light, Tyler tossed me a granola bar with a smirk. "Still allergic to effort?" I rolled my eyes. Says the guy who brought pre-workout to a fishing trip. "Hey, never know when you'll need to deadlift a trout." We laughed, the easy kind that rolled out of our chests without trying. It was like slipping into an old rhythm. But there was something new underneath it. A slow burn I wasn't sure how to name. Like when his hand brushed mine while handing me a mug and neither of us pulled away right away. Or when I caught him watching me while I changed into my sleep shirt, and his gaze lingered just a second too long before he turned away. Later that evening, we unpacked the bedding in the loft upstairs. There was only one twin bed, my uncle's was off limits, and a single old sleeping bag that smelled like cedar and mothballs. Tyler held it up, eyebrows raised. "You didn't mention we'd be reliving our Boy Scout days." I scratched the back of my neck. "I thought there were 2 bags. I guess one got left behind." He shrugged, completely unbothered. "We've shared worse. Remember that time we crashed in your mom's minivan during that school trip? That was 8th grade, dude. You drooled on me." "Character building," he said with a grin. "Bet you missed it." I laughed, but inside, I was anything but casual. The idea of sleeping next to him in that narrow bag, bodies brushing with every movement, it stirred something I wasn't ready to face. Still, I didn't object. We set up the loft space, tossing our backpacks into the corners and laying the bag across the mattress. It looked even smaller once it was unrolled. As Tyler changed into his shorts and an old camp t-shirt, I turned to give him privacy I didn't really want to give. When I turned back, he caught my eye, and for a moment, something passed between us. Not quite a stare, not quite a look away. It was something in between, something thick with questions neither of us dared to ask. "You okay?" he asked, his voice quieter now. "Yeah," I lied. The night grew cooler as the wind rustled through the trees outside, and we both slipped into the sleeping bag. Awkwardly at first, arms bumping, knees colliding, then stillness, broken only by the occasional rustle of fabric and our shared breaths. I faced the wall, pretending not to feel the warmth of his arm pressed against mine, pretending I wasn't holding my breath every time he shifted just slightly closer. I wondered if he could hear how fast my heart was beating. "Hey," he murmured after a while. "Yeah? I miss this. Us." I turned, just enough to see the soft outline of his face in the moonlight. His eyes were open, staring at the ceiling. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." He reached out blindly and gave my shoulder a little nudge. Light, playful. But when his fingers lingered for a heartbeat too long, my skin prickled. Neither of us said another word, but sleep didn't come easily that night, not with every inch between us charged with everything we weren't saying. The next morning started with scrambled eggs, sore backs, and an unspoken agreement to pretend the night before hadn't felt electric. Tyler yawned dramatically while stretching his arms high, the hem of his shirt riding up just enough to make me lose my train of thought. He caught me staring and smirked, but didn't say anything. After breakfast, we decided to hike out toward the overlook near Echo Ridge. It was about an hour's trek, a trail we hadn't taken since we were 15. Back then, we were reckless, kids with stick swords and pocketfuls of trail mix. This time I packed water, a first aid kit, and all the anxiety that came with realizing your best friend was suddenly more than just a best friend. The sun filtered through the trees in strips of gold, warming the forest floor as we hiked. Tyler walked ahead, occasionally glancing over his shoulder to toss a joke or ask if I was still alive back there. I watched the way his shoulders moved, the way he squinted when he laughed, and felt this ache in my chest that had nothing to do with the incline. Halfway through the trail, the path narrowed to a single file between thick pines. I slipped on a patch of loose dirt, and instinctively Tyler reached back and grabbed my wrist to steady me, his fingers wrapped around mine, tight, warm, anchoring. When I looked up, our faces were inches apart. "You good?" he asked, breathless. "Yeah," I said. But I didn't move. Neither did he. The silence stretched. I could feel his pulse through his grip. I told myself to let go, to laugh it off, but my hand stayed in his. Finally, he blinked, a flicker of something I couldn't quite read in his eyes, and he let go first. We made it to the overlook in time for the late afternoon sun to bathe the valley in orange and gold. The world stretched out below us. Endless trees, winding rivers, the faint glint of a lake in the distance. It should have felt peaceful. Instead, the silence between us buzzed with all the things I was too afraid to say. We stayed for a while, not talking. Then the wind picked up, sharper than expected, and dark clouds loomed in the distance. "Didn't they say clear skies all week?" Tyler muttered, eyeing the horizon. "They also said that about our 8th grade camping trip." "Remember?" I said. He groaned. "You mean the time we had to sleep in the car because the tent collapsed? And you cried because your socks got wet. Hey," he said, pointing at me, "emotional trauma. By the time we turned back, the wind had picked up and the sky had turned a weird, purplish gray. Halfway down the trail, thunder cracked and fat drops of rain started to fall. Not a drizzle, full-on buckets. We ran, slipping down the trail, breathless and laughing as the rain soaked us through. By the time we reached the cabin, we were drenched and shivering. I kicked the door shut behind us and leaned against it, catching my breath. Tyler peeled his shirt off with a dramatic groan and wrung it out over the sink. "Well, that's one way to relive our youth," he said, tossing the wet shirt over a chair. His chest glistened with rainwater, the muscles beneath his skin more defined than I remembered. When had that happened? I turned away too fast and nearly slipped on the hardwood. "Careful, clumsy," he teased, but his voice was softer. I went to the loft to change into dry clothes, heart pounding like I'd just sprinted a mile. When I came back down, Tyler was wrapped in a blanket, shirtless, toes peeking out from under the fabric as he sat near the old fireplace. "No signal, by the way," he said. "No Wi-Fi either." "Great," I said, joining him. "Guess it's just us." His eyes flicked to mine at that, just for a second, and something unspoken passed between us again. He offered me a side of the blanket. "We can warm up faster together. Science." I hesitated for the briefest moment before sliding in beside him. Our legs touched, then our arms, then our shoulders. It was subtle, just shared body heat, but I felt every inch of it. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy, intimate. "Do you ever think about how weird it is," I said, trying to keep my voice casual, "that we've known each other this long and still hang out like this?" Tyler looked at me, eyebrow raised. "You mean the still haven't killed each other part?" "No, I mean, how natural it still feels, being around you." He looked at me for a moment, really looked, then said, "Yeah, I think about that a lot." Something shifted in the air then. I could feel it, the words hovering on the edge of his lips, mirrored by the ones I was too scared to say. The fire crackled. His knee bumped mine again, slower this time. Intentional. "Jake," he said quietly. "Yeah?" He opened his mouth, closed it, then smiled, almost painfully. "Never mind. You're just important to me. You know that, right?" I nodded. I didn't trust my voice. He didn't pull away. Neither did I. I stared into the flames, every nerve in my body alive, hoping he didn't notice how tightly I was gripping the edge of the blanket, hoping he'd notice just the same. That night, the storm didn't let up. The rain hammered against the cabin roof like it had a score to settle, wind whistling through the cracks in the wood as the trees outside swayed in the dark. Tyler and I were still curled under the shared blanket by the fire, now dimming into embers. Hours had passed, and neither of us had moved much, except for the slow, inevitable way our bodies had drawn closer, piece by piece. First it was a shoulder against mine, then his thigh, warm through, the flannel of my pajama pants resting easily against my leg, and now his hand. His hand was draped lazily over the blanket, inches from mine. Close enough I could feel the heat radiating from his skin. Close enough it hurt not to reach out and close the gap. But I didn't. Couldn't. The words I wanted to say had built up in my throat for years. Years of late-night thoughts, sidelong glances, lingering hugs I told myself were friendly. I'd lived in the comfort of the what-if for so long. I didn't know if I could survive the answer. "You're quiet," Tyler said softly, breaking the silence. I didn't look at him. I was afraid if I did, it would all spill out before. I was ready. Just thinking. About? Stupid stuff. He nudged me with his elbow. "Try me." I hesitated, then exhaled through my nose. You ever wish you could freeze a moment in time? Just hit pause, stay in it a little longer before it slips away. He was quiet for a beat. Then, "Yeah, I wish that a lot, actually." When I finally glanced over, he was already looking at me. His eyes, The same ones that used to light up when he beat me at Mario Kart or found the best skipping stone at the lake held something else now. Something heavier. Something vulnerable. "What are we doing, Ty?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He blinked. "What do you mean?" "This," I said, gesturing vaguely between us. "Sharing sleeping bags, cuddling under blankets, staring at each other like we're not just friends anymore." He didn't look away. "Is that what we are? Just friends?" God, my chest felt like it was about to collapse in on itself. "I don't know," I admitted. "You tell me." He sat up a little straighter, pulling the blanket tighter around us. His voice was careful, quiet. "I've been trying to figure that out all weekend. Every time I think I've got it sorted, you do something that makes it worse. Or better. I don't know." "Like what?" "Like the way you look at me when you think I'm not paying attention. Or how you remember things I don't even remember telling you. Or how you didn't flinch last night when our hands touched. You just let it happen." My pulse thundered in my ears. "I didn't flinch," I said, barely breathing, "because I didn't want to." Tyler looked down at his hands, fingers fidgeting with the edge of the blanket. "I'm not gonna lie," he said after a long pause. "I've been scared, because if I say the wrong thing, if I read this the wrong way, I could lose the best person in my life." My throat went tight. "You're not reading it wrong." He looked back up at me then, and the expression on his face was nothing short of raw. Open, hopeful, terrified. "I like you," I said. The words cracked coming out, like they'd been hiding too long. "And not just in the thanks for punching my childhood bully way. I mean, I like you. Always have, I think. I just didn't let myself feel it." Tyler didn't speak. Right away. His eyes searched mine like he was waiting for the catch, the joke, the backpedal. "I thought it was just me," he finally said, voice rough. "I've been driving myself crazy trying to pretend I didn't feel it. But every time we're alone, I feel like I'm 1 second away from doing something stupid." My breath hitched. "Like what?" He didn't answer with words. He shifted forward. Hand brushing mine deliberately this time, fingers lacing through mine like it was the most natural thing in the world. He was close now, so close I could count the freckles on his cheeks, see the nervous twitch in his jaw. "I want to kiss you," he said quietly, "but I'll wait if you're not ready." I didn't answer with words either. I leaned in, slowly, carefully, like I was afraid he'd vanish if I moved too fast. And when our lips met, it wasn't fireworks or explosions or movie screen drama. It was quiet, gentle, a sigh of a kiss, like exhaling something we'd been holding in for years. His hand came up to cup my jaw, thumb brushing the skin just beneath my ear. My heart thudded so loud I could feel it in my teeth, but I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. When we finally broke apart, he rested his forehead against mine. Our noses brushing. "I've wanted to do that for so long," he whispered. "Yeah," I breathed. "Me too." We stayed like that for a while, fingers intertwined, sharing breath and silence and something new that neither of us had words for yet. Eventually, he chuckled softly. "So, what now?" I smiled. "Now we figure it out. One step at a time." "You sure?" he asked, still hesitant. "This isn't just heat of the moment, right?" I shook my head. "No. This has been building for a long time. We were just too scared to say it." He let out a shaky laugh and leaned in to kiss me again, slower this time, more certain. And when we pulled apart, the fear was still there, but it was quieter now, dwarfed by something bigger, something better. We climbed into the sleeping bag. Later, the same cramped space that once felt unbearable with tension now filled with something warmer, softer. He wrapped an arm around my waist like he'd done it 100 times before. I rested my head on his chest, and for the first time in forever, I didn't feel like I had to pretend. Didn't feel like I had to hide anything. Outside, the storm finally began to die down. But inside that little cabin, something new had begun. I woke up with my face pressed against Tyler's chest, the soft rise and fall of his breathing a slow rhythm against my cheek. His arm was draped across my back, fingers splayed lazily like he'd fallen asleep mid-reach and never pulled away. And, for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the usual panic that came with waking up too close to someone I wasn't supposed to want. Because this time, I didn't have to pretend. Ty stirred slightly, shifting under the sleeping bag before. His hand tightened around me. I looked up, just in time to catch the drowsy curve of his lips. "Mornin'," he murmured, voice still thick with sleep. "Hey," I said, smiling. For a moment, neither of us moved. The fire had gone out sometime during the night, leaving the cabin dipped in gray morning light and the faint smell of ash. It should have been awkward. It should have been filled with the nervous silence of regret or second-guessing. But it wasn't. It felt easy, like we'd always belonged here. "Wasn't a dream, right?" Tyler asked, eyes still closed but a grin tugging at the edge of his mouth. "Only if we both had the same one," I said, nudging his side. "In which case that's either romantic or really weird." He laughed, groaning as he stretched his arms above his head. "God, you snore." "By the way—" "Lies," I said, mock-offended. "I sleep like a prince." "Yeah, a prince with a chainsaw for a nose." I shoved him and he yelped dramatically, grabbing at his side like I'd mortally wounded him. "Easy! You're gonna break my ribs!" My precious ribs. "You're such a baby," I said. But I was laughing too now, the tension from last night melting into something lighter, something warm and shared. We eventually sat up, still huddled beneath the blanket, shoulders pressed, together as we stared at the half-burned logs in the fireplace. There was a pause, longer this time, not uncomfortable, just thoughtful. Tyler broke it. "So, what now?" I swallowed. "I was wondering when you'd ask." He turned toward me, serious now. "I meant what I said last night. I've wanted us for a long time. But it's one thing to kiss in the dark under a blanket, and another to figure out what happens when we go home." I nodded. "Yeah, I've been thinking about that too." And I don't want this to be something we leave behind with the cabin," I said quietly. "I want to see where this goes. For real." His hand found mine again, fingers, intertwining without hesitation. "Me too. Even if it's messy. Even if we have to figure it out one awkward step at a time." I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "It'll probably be awkward a lot." "Oh yeah," he grinned. "We're both terrible at serious conversations. And yet here we are. Look at us," he said, "communicating, like adults. Gross." I laughed, leaning into his side, feeling the soft thud of his heartbeat against my shoulder. "So what do we call this now?" He raised an eyebrow. "You mean other than magical, soul-affirming, and wildly overdue?" I rolled my eyes. "I was thinking more along the lines of boyfriend." The word hung in the air between us, weighty, exciting, new. Tyler's grin softened. "Yeah, I like that." "Boyfriend?" He leaned in, brushing his lips against mine again. A kiss that didn't ask a question this time, just answered one. Outside, the trees swayed gently in the breeze, sunlight beginning to peek through the clouds. We sat there side by side, a little more tangled than before, a little more sure. There were still things to figure out, friends, family, labels, life. But for now, we had this. And for the first time, it felt like the start of something we weren't afraid to hold on to. The drive back down the mountain felt different, The same winding roads, the same trees flashing past the windows, but now there was a quiet hum beneath it all. Not tension, not nerves, something like peace. Tyler was driving, one hand steady on the wheel while the other rested casually between us, his fingers brushing mine every now and then, like he just wanted to remind himself I was still there, and I wanted the same. We didn't talk much on the ride, didn't need to. There was something oddly comforting about the silence, as if the space between us didn't have to be filled with words anymore. We'd already said the most important ones. I glanced over at him, at the way the sunlight lit up his profile, the curve of his smile when he caught me looking. "What?" he asked, eyes flicking briefly from the road to me. "Nothing," I said, smiling. "Just, this feels unreal." He nodded, letting out a soft hum. "Yeah, but in a good way." The truck hit a familiar stretch of road, and I realized we were close to home. I felt the old anxiety creeping back, the kind that whispered about expectations and judgments and the risk of being seen differently by the people who thought they knew us best. But then Tyler reached over and laced his fingers through mine. Right there, in broad daylight. No hesitation, just quiet certainty. He didn't look at me when he did it, didn't need to. His thumb grazed the side of my hand gently, a grounding touch. A promise. "I don't want to go back to pretending," he said after a minute. I tightened my grip. "Me either." "Even if people talk?" "Let them," I said. "They don't know what this is." Tyler laughed softly. That sounded almost poetic. "I have my moments," I shrugged, trying not to grin. We pulled up to my house, the truck rumbling to a stop at the curb. Neither of us moved right away. The air between us was still and full. "So," he said, "you're gonna come over tomorrow, right? I've got that horror movie marathon planned. Thought we could make it a thing." "A thing?" "You know," he said, mock casual. "Boyfriend things, terrible movies, too much popcorn, and me pretending not to scream when something jumps out." "I'll bring the snacks," I said, "and I'll bring the cuddles." That made me laugh, an actual full laugh that left me leaning my head against the seat. We sat there for another moment before I reached into my bag and pulled out something small. The Polaroid from the cabin. The one I'd snapped when he wasn't looking, right before the power went out. Tyler sitting on the rug, hoodie pulled over his head, mug in hand, smiling in that half-shy, half-sarcastic way he always did when he thought no one was paying attention. I handed it to him. He looked at it, then at me. "You kept this?" "Yeah," I said. "Just felt like something I didn't want to forget." His expression softened, and he carefully tucked the photo into the visor above the dashboard. "Then we won't." I opened the door, stepping out into the warm afternoon. As I rounded the truck to say goodbye, Tyler met me halfway, pulling me into a hug that lingered. His arms wrapped around my waist, his head tucked into my shoulder. It wasn't the kind of hug you give a friend. It was the kind that said, "I see you, I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. I'll text you when I get home," he said, pulling back just enough to meet my eyes. "Okay." He kissed my cheek, quick, but not rushed, and then climbed back into the truck. I watched him drive away until his taillights disappeared down the street. I stood there for a moment longer, heart thudding in that quiet, full way. There would be hard days ahead, sure, conversations we weren't ready for, looks, questions, but also laughs, late nights, inside jokes, movie marathons, his hand in mine, and maybe, if we were lucky, more Polaroids tucked into unexpected places, because this wasn't an ending. It was our beginning.